The sun descended over the northern plains of Burkina Faso, casting long, blood-orange shadows across a battlefield littered with the echoes of war. Smoke spiraled from charred earth, curling skyward as if the land itself were weeping. The acrid tang of burnt gunpowder and iron-filled air mingled with the scent of dust, sweat, and grief. And among this chaos, walking slowly, almost reverently, was Captain Ibrahim Traore. His boots pressed into the sodden, scarred earth, leaving deep impressions in the mud, each step heavy with the weight of loss and responsibility. He moved with a kind of deliberate solemnity, eyes scanning the fallen. These were not just soldiers to him, they were brothers, men who had trusted him, men who had believed in a vision of a free Burkina Faso, unshackled from the greed of corrupt elites and foreign exploitation. Each face told a story, each uniform told a sacrifice, and in that sea of motionless forms, he searched for the one who had always been more than just a soldier, Sergeant Amadou Kaber. The wind carried distant cries from families who had just learned that their sons, their fathers, would never return home. Ibrahim's jaw was clenched, his hands trembling slightly but restrained, as he walked past bodies riddled with bullets, fallen in acts of bravery and devotion. He had survived ambushes, explosions, and firefights, yet nothing could have prepared him for this, a battlefield that had claimed his friend, his confidant, the man whose laughter could pierce even the darkest hours of despair. Amadou lay there, his uniform soaked in blood, his weapons still clutched in his hands. His chest rose and fell in final stillness, 3 bullet wounds marking the ultimate price he had paid to protect others. And Ibrahim, the future president of Burkina Faso, felt his heart break with a force that words could never capture. He knelt beside him, fingers brushing against the blood-stained fabric, eyes drinking in the peaceful expression on Amadou's face. Memories flooded him. The time Amadou had pulled him from a burning vehicle seconds before it exploded, soot-blackened and grinning, saying, "A country cannot afford to lose you, Captain. You are the future. I am just a soldier." The nights around the campfire, where Amadou's terrible jokes had made everyone laugh despite the war surrounding them. The revolutionary songs Amadou had sung so loudly that entire battalions joined in, voices echoing across the savannah, promising hope amidst despair. The stolen meals Amadou had given to hungry civilians, never thinking of himself, never seeking praise, only caring about the people he fought to protect. Tears streamed down Ibrahim's dirt-streaked face, but his hands remained firm, holding his friend with care that defied the brutality around them. This is not protocol, he thought. This is humanity. A colonel approached, saluting stiffly. "Captain, 32 fallen soldiers have been identified, including Sergeant Kaber. Shall we proceed with standard military protocols?" Ibrahim shook his head, voice low but resolute. "Leave us. Everyone, give me a moment." The colonel hesitated but stepped back, sensing the unshakable determination in his captain's gaze. Slowly, soldiers moved away, the chaos of the battlefield fading into a solemn silence. Ibrahim knelt alone with Amadou, the future of a nation resting in that single act of mourning, respect, and love. Major General Edrigo, a man whose 30-year career had been built on discipline, hierarchy, and detachment, strode toward Ibrahim, boots pounding the earth. His face was red with frustration, eyes flashing with authority. "Captain Traore, what is the meaning of this? You cannot kneel here like a civilian. You have responsibilities. Protocol demands." Ibrahim looked up, dirt and tears streaking his face, eyes blazing. "You are wrong, General. Amadou has a name. He has a family. He had dreams. He loved his country. And you want me to process him like paperwork? No. I will not. I will honor him as he deserves." Around them, soldiers froze, watching a moment that would become legendary. Protocol had been broken, hierarchy challenged, but humanity had triumphed. Insubordination? The general barked, reaching for his sidearm. Ibrahim's laugh was bitter, filled with grief and anger. Amadou died fighting terrorists armed with weapons our own corrupt government supplied. He died protecting villages abandoned because your commanders chose bribes over duty. And now you speak of insubordination? Arrest me. in front of everyone. Show the soldiers what this army truly values: orders or honor. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then, a young lieutenant, barely 22, stepped forward. Permission to help carry Sergeant Caber, Captain. And then another, and another, until 50 soldiers had formed a human wall of respect, walking alongside their captain as he cradled his fallen brother. The general lowered his hand, shoulders slumping. Do what you must, Captain, but know this will have consequences. Ibrahim nodded, his eyes unwavering. I am counting on it, General. Ibrahim carried Amadou slowly, adjusting his uniform, ensuring his dog tags were visible, treating him with the dignity of a king returning home. Soldiers fell in step beside him, forming an honor guard. The wind carried their steps, their silence, their reverence. Others stopped their work, saluting, weeping, unable to turn away from the raw display of respect. Helicopters hovered lower to witness, medics paused, and civilian contractors, hardened by decades of war, found themselves unable to look away. The procession stretched for nearly 20 minutes across the battlefield. The first voices rose in song, Lieutenant Sawato's call of an old revolutionary hymn. One by one, 200 soldiers joined, voices rolling across the savannah like thunder. Ibrahim's arms did not tire. Tears streamed, yet he walked with the careful determination of a man carrying not only a friend but the ideals of a nation. At the transport zone, Ibrahim personally laid Amadou in the vehicle, hands folded across his chest, eyes lingering, ensuring dignity until the last moment. Then, with a trembling hand, he delivered a salute lasting nearly a minute. 200 hands followed, rising into the sky, creating a tableau of emotion, honor, and transformation. The battlefield, once a place of death and chaos, now bore witness to a profound metamorphosis. The old military ways, detachment, suppression, blind adherence, had cracked. In their place, the recognition that strength came from truth, loyalty, and love. Soldiers fought harder for leaders who saw them as brothers, not tools. Honor had been restored. Major General Edrigo, watching, felt a stir in his chest he hadn't felt in 30 years, shame, perhaps, or understanding. He approached Ibrahim as the singing faded. Captain Traore, I owe you an apology. Protocol is meant to serve humanity, not replace it. Ibrahim nodded, exhausted but resolute. We don't need new protocols, General. We need new hearts. Every soldier is someone's son, father, brother. We fight for people, not abstract ideals. We carry the fallen because love demands it, not because regulation requires it. Word of the battlefield honor spread quickly. Soldiers who had not been present heard the story, each retelling strengthening the mythos. Within weeks, military culture began to shift. Junior officers learned soldiers' names, families, and dreams. Commanders personally visited the wounded. Fallen soldiers were treated with sacred respect rather than bureaucratic efficiency. At the heart of it all was Ibrahim Traore, leading from the front, never forgetting a face, a name, a story. Amadou's death had sparked a revolution in the military, one that would later reshape the entire nation. Ibrahim insisted on attending personally. He spoke to Salamata, Amadou's widow, and held their newborn son, promising him a Burkina Faso free from the corruption that had claimed his father. Hundreds of soldiers lined a corridor of honor. Salamata's head remained high as she walked through, her children clutching her dress. Ibrahim spoke, recorded by journalists and shared widely across social media. Amadou did not die for politicians. He died for an idea, that Burkina Faso belongs to its people, that sovereignty has meaning, that dignity cannot be bought or sold. I promise his death will mean something. The crowd erupted, chanting his name. Amadou! 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 Tears flowed, grief mingled with pride, recognition that sacrifice had created something powerful. The nation watched. Ibrahim Traore became a folk hero, murals painted, songs composed, t-shirts printed. True leaders carry their fallen. Citizens began questioning leadership. If he cares this much for one soldier, what could he do for a country? The military was forced to adapt, soldiers refusing orders that bypassed Traore's command. Within 18 months, he led a coup, becoming one of the youngest presidents in the world. He implemented his vision, expelling foreign forces, renegotiating mining contracts, fighting corruption, and restoring sovereignty. Each year, he visited Amida's family, established foundations for fallen soldiers, and commissioned monuments celebrating the sacrifice that had sparked a revolution. When asked internationally, Traore always said, "I learned everything that matters on the battlefield. Carrying my friend taught me that true strength is love, true leadership is service, and true revolution is honoring every life and every sacrifice." He proved that compassion could be revolutionary, that honoring one soldier could ignite transformation, that the weight of a single act of love could reshape a nation. Amada Keba died, but his legacy lives on, in schools built, corrupt officials held accountable, foreign exploiters expelled, and children growing up in a Burkina Faso that belongs to its people. This is the story of Ibrahim Traore and Amadou Keba, a story of sacrifice, love, and transformative leadership. A story showing that great change begins with one act of human compassion, one promise kept, and one life honored. Long before the battlefield, long before the blood-soaked plains, Ibrahim Traore had been a young officer with fire in his eyes and determination in his heart. He had joined the military not for medals, not for rank, but for a vision of a Burkina Faso that could rise above exploitation, corruption, and the chains imposed by foreign interests. He remembered walking through the villages during his early days, seeing the hunger in children's eyes, the despair on the faces of mothers, the resignation of fathers forced to abandon their dreams to survive. It was in those moments that Ibrahim realized leadership was not just about issuing orders. It was about seeing, understanding, and feeling the weight of responsibility that rested on every soldier under his command. Amadou Keba had entered his life at that time, a young sergeant, brave, loyal, and surprisingly perceptive. He had questioned Ibrahim's tactics at first, asking difficult questions that forced Ibrahim to think harder, plan better, and refine strategies. Yet, every debate ended in mutual respect. Amadou did not challenge to undermine, he challenged to strengthen. And in doing so, he became the man who would one day inspire Ibrahim to redefine what leadership truly meant. The men Ibrahim led were more than soldiers. They were sons, husbands, fathers, farmers, teachers, and students whose lives had been interrupted by war. He remembered Sergeant Keba sharing stories of his children, how he taught them about fairness, courage, and honesty even as bullets tore across villages. Amadou had been meticulous in his care for the soldiers under his wing, teaching them not only how to fight but how to survive with integrity. Ibrahim walked among the fallen with these memories flooding back. Each life he saw was a tapestry of dreams interrupted, of families left waiting, of futures stolen. And yet, it was also a testament to the courage and resilience of a generation that refused to bow to fear or corruption. The battlefield had been silent for hours after the chaos of combat. The helicopters now circled lazily overhead, surveying the aftermath. Yet, in the quiet, a new story was being written, one not in the ink of bureaucracy, not in the sterile language of reports, but in tears, whispers, and the raw, unfiltered love of a captain for his fallen friend. Ibrahim held Amadou's body, walking with painstaking care across the scarred earth, and the soldiers around him began to understand what true leadership looked like. For decades, the military had taught them that strength was measured in detachment, in suppression of emotion, in following orders without question. But here was something they had never witnessed: strength intertwined with compassion, authority tempered by humanity. The young soldiers looked at each other, realization dawning. This is how a leader fights, not just for victory, but for every life under his command. Over the following days, Ibrahim's actions continued to ripple across the military. Officers began visiting the wounded personally. Soldiers no longer felt like expendable tools, they felt seen, heard, and valued. The honor given to Amadou Keba's sacrifice became a standard, not an exception. But it wasn't just ritual. It was an awakening. Soldiers began to speak up, to question decisions that prioritized bureaucracy over justice. They began to see the broader implications, that loyalty to corrupt politicians was not the same as loyalty to their nation, and that true service meant protecting people, not perpetuating systems of exploitation. Ibrahim ensured that Amida's family was not left behind in the narrative of heroism. He personally delivered the news to Salamata, Amida's widow, and held her children close, promising that their father's death would have meaning. The youngest, a newborn born 3 weeks after Amida's passing, would grow up with stories of courage and love, not just grief and absence. Every year, Ibrahim returned to their home, bringing gifts, telling stories, teaching the children lessons their father had lived by. In these moments, the abstract ideals of sovereignty, revolution, and justice became tangible, personal. Every soldier's death was not a number, not a statistic. It was a life, a family, a story, and Ibrahim ensured none of them were forgotten. Burkina Faso had long been a nation caught between internal corruption and external exploitation. Foreign companies extracted resources while local elites enriched themselves, leaving ordinary citizens to navigate poverty, violence, and instability. The military was often complicit, enforcing policies that served the powerful while ignoring the suffering of the people. Ibrahim understood that changing the battlefield was not enough. To truly honor Amadou, to honor all the soldiers who had fallen, the system itself needed transformation. Quietly observing, planning, and building alliances within the military and among citizens who longed for justice. Every act of compassion, every honor paid to the fallen, became a signal, a ripple, a seed of revolution. 18 months after Amida's death, Ibrahim Traoré led a carefully orchestrated military coup, overthrowing a corrupt government. At 34, he became one of the youngest heads of state in the world. But his leadership was unlike any the nation had seen. He began by rooting out corruption, renegotiating unfair foreign contracts, and expelling forces that undermined sovereignty. More importantly, he instilled a culture of respect, humanity, and accountability within the military. Soldiers who had once been instruments of oppression now became guardians of their people, inspired by the memory of Amadou Kaber and the example of their commander. The image of Ibrahim carrying Amadou across the battlefield became an enduring symbol. It appeared in murals, songs, and t-shirts. But beyond symbolism, it represented a philosophy that leadership is measured not by power or rank, but by the willingness to bear the weight of others' sacrifices. Every act of justice, every new school, every transparent contract, every military reform was a continuation of that day on the battlefield. The world witnessed not only a political transformation but a moral one, a revolution rooted in empathy, courage, and unwavering integrity. The story of Ibrahim and Amadou spread beyond military ranks. Citizens began questioning authority, demanding accountability, and envisioning a Burkina Faso where leadership was defined by service rather than exploitation. Children learned that heroism was not just about battle, it was about compassion. Soldiers and civilians alike were reminded that every life mattered, every sacrifice counted, and every promise to the fallen was sacred. Even international observers marveled at the change. They saw a military, and eventually a nation, restructured not just by policy, but by the values of empathy, respect, and justice, all inspired by one act of courage and one promise kept. Years later, Ibrahim Traoré continued to honor Amadou's memory personally. Foundations were established for the families of fallen soldiers. Monuments were commissioned to remind future generations that sacrifice deserves dignity, and that leadership demands more than strategy, it demands heart. Every anniversary of the battlefield, Ibrahim visited the families, ensuring that the story of their loved ones was never forgotten. Schools were named after fallen heroes, streets were renamed to commemorate acts of valor, and the nation's youth grew up with the knowledge that heroism was intertwined with humanity. When international media asked about his leadership philosophy, Ibrahim's answer remained consistent. I learned everything that matters on a battlefield. Carrying my friend taught me that true strength is love, true leadership is service, and true revolution is honoring every life and every sacrifice. He demonstrated that compassion could be revolutionary, that one act of human dignity could ignite systemic transformation, and that love could be a guiding principle for both military and political leadership. Amadou Kaber died, but his legacy lived on in every soldier treated with respect, every family supported, every corrupt official held accountable, and every child growing up in a Burkina Faso that belonged to its people. The lessons of that battlefield echoed in classrooms, government offices, and communities across the nation. And so, the story continues, not as a tale of war alone, but as a testament to the enduring power of compassion, loyalty, and courage. It is a story that reminds the world, real change begins when humanity guides action, when leaders honor the fallen, and when promises made to those who sacrificed are kept. News of Ibrahim Traore's actions spread far beyond the battlefield. In villages, towns, and cities across Burkina Faso, people whispered about the captain who refused to leave his fallen soldier behind. Mothers told their children the story of Amadou Kaber, of the man who gave everything for others, and of the commander who honored him in a way that no regulation could define. Fathers paused their work to consider what leadership truly meant. Students in classrooms debated morality, courage, and duty, inspired by a single act that rippled outward like a wave. For many, it was more than inspiration, it was a mirror reflecting what their country could become. In markets, people shared rumors of the captain's courage. Street vendors printed small flyers recounting the story. Shopkeepers placed photographs of Ibrahim carrying Amadou alongside quotations from his funeral speech. Every sacrifice matters. Every life counts. And every promise to the fallen must be kept. Even children in the dusty streets of Ouagadougou sang songs about the soldier who gave his life and the captain who carried him home. Within the military itself, the change was profound. Senior officers who had once relied on strict protocol and rigid hierarchy began to reconsider their approach. Soldiers were no longer faceless numbers in a ledger of casualties. They were sons, daughters, fathers, mothers, friends, human beings whose sacrifices deserved acknowledgement. Ibrahim insisted on leading by example. Every briefing began with recognition of the fallen. Every mission concluded with a review of how the soldiers had performed not just tactically but ethically. Junior officers were encouraged to know the backgrounds of those under their command, to understand the dreams and fears that guided their actions, and to lead with empathy rather than fear. In the barracks, conversations changed. Young soldiers spoke openly about what mattered to them. They shared stories of the families they were protecting, of the villages they hoped to see free. They felt a renewed sense of purpose. The military, which had once been seen as a machine for oppression and enforcement, was becoming something else entirely, a force defined by honor, loyalty, and compassion. Every act Ibrahim undertook after that day in the northern battlefield was informed by Amadou's sacrifice. The establishment of a foundation in Amadou's name created opportunities for the children of fallen soldiers, ensuring they had access to education, healthcare, and mentorship. Schools built in his memory emphasized not just learning but ethics, community service, and leadership through empathy. Public monuments immortalized the image of Ibrahim carrying Amadou, a captain holding his sergeant, a symbol of loyalty, courage, and humanity. Artists across Burkina Faso painted murals depicting the event in vivid color, capturing the grief, determination, and love in every brushstroke. Musicians composed ballads, blending traditional rhythms with lyrics that spoke of sacrifice, duty, and the power of one man's choice to honor another. The story even reached neighboring countries. Across West Africa, citizens discussed the meaning of leadership and service. Leaders in other nations began to reconsider how they treated their own militaries, and ordinary people began demanding accountability from those in power. The act of carrying a fallen soldier had transformed into a moral and cultural catalyst, proving that leadership rooted in humanity could inspire entire nations. Yet, transformation is never without resistance. Corrupt politicians, threatened by the rising moral authority of Ibrahim Traore, began plotting to undermine him. Narratives, attempting to tarnish his image and diminish the significance of his actions. They whispered that his compassion made him weak, that honoring soldiers over following orders was dangerous, that personal sentiment had no place in governance. But Ibrahim did not waver. He knew that true leadership was not measured by the absence of criticism but by the courage to act ethically, even when opposition was fierce. He used these political attacks to strengthen his message, demonstrating that governance was not about protecting oneself but about protecting the people. Behind the scenes, Ibrahim worked tirelessly to build alliances. He engaged with community leaders, religious figures, educators, and activists, creating a network that transcended the military and reached into civil society. His aim was not merely to consolidate power, but to ensure that the principles which guided him on the battlefield — empathy, honor, and justice — would permeate every layer of governance.